Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Eddie Austin. Today, I have a good friend of mine on, Scott Kidd. He has probably one of the coolest jobs in the world. He is a yacht captain, and he travels the waterways, and he's also a unbelievable person in the real estate market, but in mindset. And the things that this man has done is truly amazing. And I want to welcome Scott Kidd. Welcome. Tell
Hey,
us about you.
thank you, Eddie. I'm really glad to be here. It's always great catching up with you. I've been a yacht captain for over 20 plus years, and I love being on the water. It's been a great career for myself and my family. It's brought me to a lot of places that I've never even dreamed of. And life is funny, just sometimes getting out of your own element or trying something different. It can take you to so many places that you never thought of, never dreamed of. And as a result of that, it being a great career and a great job and a great opportunity for me, it can also be a very fickle business, sort of a here today, gone tomorrow kind of thing. I work on a private yacht, and it's a toy for someone. And when things take a dip, the economy takes a dip, or someone changes their mind, they're not into the yachts anymore. Those toys go away. So because
Yeah.
of that, I was always looking for other things on the side to do, and real estate was always something that I always loved, and it was somewhat passive. I was married, I've been married over 20 years now. And we got married, we bought our first house. And then, as the family grew, we bought another house, rented that one, and then kind of grew from there and just kind of fell into the multifamily and syndication because a friend of mine told me that he had bought and sold an apartment building in Houston, Texas, and he'd made a large sum of money. And I said, well, um, you can do that? And he said, yeah, you can do that. I did it. You can do
Yeah.
it. It's
Yeah.
not rocket science. You just got to do it. And so that started my journey in real estate. And getting to the mindset point, that's really what it all is about.
Yeah. Because, it seems like there's so many ways to make money. And I'm not a huge fan of trading hours for dollars, but there's so many things that when we step outside the box of, trading hours for dollars and we look at, syndicating real estate or building your first fund or anything like that, it takes quite a bit of capacity and it takes a new form of education to understand it. And then the next thing is once you seem to get the education and everything else, then you have to battle that mindset that,
Yes.
can you do this? And we talked about this right before we jumped online. And, talk about some of the things that you do, or just like you said, can I do this? Hey, Scott, like, what are you talking about? What are you telling yourself?
Yeah, you know, it's something that I keeps coming back to me as we were discussing, is the mindset. It's really, before I talked to my friend about that, I didn't know you could do that. And I worked one of the first captain's jobs I had. I worked for a really big real estate developer, and he taught me a lot about real estate and business. He and I got along great. He's since passed, but he was a great guy, great family. And he always had all these private investors and a lot of parts of his company on the boats and stuff with us. But I always thought it was just a strictly private thing. And this is the
Hmm.
early 2000s, so up until 2012 was before it was really, you had to really be invited in. And still today, it's a little known thing. So it's kind of what you're exposed to, and your mindset, putting yourself around these other people that are doing these things. Till myself especially, until I've seen somebody doing that, I wouldn't. It'd be hard to fathom it. I didn't, until I started working on the boats. I didn't know there was actually a career.
Yeah.
It's a little known thing. So it's, like you say, getting out of your comfort zone. And one of the things that I do a lot is I do some deep meditation and do some breathing exercises, Wim Hof breathing, and
Hmm.
some other types of uh, breath work that just kind of keeps you calm and clears your head. Because early in the morning, I know it had been for years and decades that I get up and my my brain's on turbo, and I just start doing stuff. But I found, and then you end up opening up way too many projects and start doing too many things. But I found that if I hit that reset button early in the morning, it really helps. And I've done, cold plunges, and you don't have to go to those measures, but some of the things that have really helped me is just like getting up every so often, just maybe taking a walk, going outside, or just stepping away from what you're actually doing. And you'll find that, especially when you're looking at something that's you're thinking, oh man, how am I going to figure this one out? If you step away for maybe even just 5 minutes, or go and
Yeah.
talk to somebody else, it might come to you. Or, if you ask somebody else, they might go, hey, why don't you do this? And you might have been racking your brain for a couple of weeks, and they go, hey, just do this. And, oh man, why didn't I talk to you 2 weeks ago?
Yeah. Yeah. It would have been things so much easier. Man, I totally get that, Scott, because sometimes we wake up and we immediately, it's like we jump on Google and we open a bunch of tabs, right?
Yeah,
And then we just can't figure out, like, okay, what is the one thing that's we can do here that's going to make the most difference or the biggest impact?
yeah,
And that's really something I've truly focused on here in the last 6 months, is like, what's the one thing that I could do that would change everything?
yeah,
And then I make my calendar and my task reflect that.
yeah,
And, I really am very cognizant on everything that's going on. I'm like, man, okay, we don't need these tabs open. I love the way you explained that. Like, we've got so many things going here. Let me just clear my head. Let's take a walk
yeah,
and let's think about this. Maybe call Scott and bounce an idea off of him,
yeah.
but let's slow the rev limiter down and let's really hone in on what's truly important.
Yeah, it's like you said, opening all these tabs and everything, early in the morning, it's kind of shows that, the more things you open up, the less likely you're going to get those done. But if you focus on like one thing and one at a time, because the the whole thing about multitasking is really kind of a farce. It's really
Yeah.
just the brain jumping from thing to thing. But when you jump to the next thing, it takes your brain so much more time to go back to that other thing, because they're in your brain. It's actually two separate things. And
Hmm. Hmm.
it's something that I've made a conscious effort of. Early in the morning, I try not to pick up my phone for at least a half hour to an
Right.
hour. I might have my coffee or something, or maybe write down some things. And I always thought that the more things I put on my calendar, that I would have less time, because I've scheduled all this stuff. But in actuality, it actually opens up the rest of your schedule. You end up spending more time with your family because you actually execute and get those things done. Because you say,
Hmm.
hey, I only have this much time to do this. I better get it done. And then,
Yeah.
come 4 or 5 o'clock, that's family time. You put the
Hmm.
phones down and stuff like that. And sometimes things take longer, but it's one of the things as I get older that I realize that whoever you're speaking to or with at that time, you just have to be present. That's
Yes.
the most important thing, because your time is the biggest thing you can give to anyone.
Yes. And that's so true. That's powerful, man, because, so many times, maybe we go to lunch together or we go to dinner together, and, that time, our day, we ran over our calendar, like on every single task, and
Yeah,
there's things that's looming, and we get to the restaurant or we get to the lunch spot, and, we're still checking emails, and,
yeah,
that time that we're spending together is not time well spent. Like, we could
yeah,
have had amazing conversations, but you're thinking about the email that you need to send next, or
yeah,
I'm thinking about that phone call that I just missed that I should have picked
yeah,
up on. And you've just got to, I want to touch real quick on my three pillars. I really adapted these three pillars to my life recently because I'm like, man, I'm missing some things that just don't quite like. I'm also a pilot. You know, you're a
Oh,
pilot, but you're
cool.
piloting ships, and you
Yeah.
know, so there's a lot of like navigation stuff that we do because there's the destination. You know, you got to calculate time over distance. You got to calculate, you know, how much fuel's on board. You know, all these different things. I'm sure that's something you have to do as well.
Yes.
And so I'm like, man, these things I'm missing. Why am I missing them? What's going on here that I'm just not able to hit these targets consistently? And I had to put these three pillars in place. And for me, the very first one is being present.
Yes.
And, you know, I have to be present, like physically when I'm here in the office or when I'm here on this podcast, like I have to be present. Like I have to be giving you my devoted time to you and make sure that this is the best podcast that could ever be made. And then the second one is I got to be deliberate. You know, I got to be clear cut and concise on my actions. Like, okay, if I am doing this right now, what all do I need to turn off? So I'm completely deliberate on my actions. Like everything I'm doing, is it truly going to get me where I want to go? Like if I open this next tab, is that going to get me there? Probably not. And then the last one is patience.
Oh,
I've
yes.
always been a very impatient person. I'm a very professional person. I'll wait for things, but I want things to happen.
Yeah.
You know, I want things to happen right now. And so many times I've seen amazing people build amazing companies, and they're like, I'm going to build BlackRock, or I'm going to build Blackstone. You know,
Hmm.
I'm going to build Goldman Sachs. And they're comparing themselves to something that was being done for the last 40 years.
Hmm.
And they get discouraged in the first 5 years. They got, you know, maybe 3,000 or 5,000 units, and they start facing the adversity and they're like, oh man, you know, and they just don't give it enough patience. Like it
Yeah.
takes time. We can go faster with today's technology. There's no
Yeah.
doubt about that, but it still takes time, and you got to give something time to let it mature. It's like
Yeah.
the bamboo tree, right? You know,
Yeah.
you water this thing 3 to 5 years before it ever pops out of the soil. And then in 1 year, it grows 90 feet.
Yeah. And it skyrockets. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for sharing those pillars. I really like that because it's very important to be present. You know, you just have to. And I've been kind of going back to this mantra that kind of I heard a guy that was a fund manager. He sold his fund for so many billions of dollars, but he came down to these three things that he said was to be clear, be grateful, and listen. Like be clear in what your
Yes.
intentions are, like intentional, like you're saying. And be grateful for that opportunity and be grateful that you have that chance to do that. And then just listen because all of it's probably right there in front of you.
It
You
is.
you're just probably missing. It's that like that. I forget what that's called. Where maybe you're looking at a Toyota car and you weren't looking at them before, but then now you see about 20 of them on the road. Now you see them
Right.
everywhere.
It's your
So
reticular activating system, you
that's what
know,
it is.
and
Yeah.
it's when you go buy this car, this most beautiful blue car that you've never ever seen before, and the next thing you know, there's 30 of them in your town, and you're like, I never seen that color before, but
Yeah.
now that you own one, everybody's got one. Well,
Yeah.
chances are it was there before. You
Yeah.
know, other thing you touched on something else that I want to dive in on as a mantra. Now I just recently had read a book towards the end of last year that was Change Your Thinking, Ignite Your Life.
Oh wow.
And I read this book, and this gentleman that wrote it had talked about this mantra, and he had some daily mantra meditation practices. And I had the honor to do a podcast with him, and we kind of went in on that. And also I got my three pillars, you know, lined out. Like these are kind of my three pillars to live by. And I really go deep on them. I'm even talking about when I decide where I'm going to go to dinner
Mm-hmm.
or when I'm going to go to the gym. Because if you really think about being present on like where you choose to go to dinner and how much time you're going to take, like, yeah, you're in a hurry. You could go to McDonald's, but it's not good for your health.
Mm-hmm.
But if you took the time and was thinking and you were deliberate about your actions and you stopped and you gave yourself enough time for a really good meal, and you ordered the right things because you were thinking about, hey, this probably is not good for my heart. So
Hmm.
I'm probably not going to eat the fast food. I'm going to just sit down and have a nice meal. So applying these three pillars can go on everything. But there was one thing that was missing when I read his book. It really made sense. Was this mantra meditation practice? So like for mine, it's I am and you get yourself centered, or you meditate, or you do something, or you do some breathing where you get really connected, and then you're like you take your fingers and you touch them together. And for me, it's when my breathing. And so for me, it's, I am present. I believe. I am grateful. I am ready to receive. All these different things, but all these little breakdowns are what help me get in the right mindset and get myself set up so I can truly focus on what's most important.
Yeah, most definitely. One book that I read several years ago now is The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod, and he has
Yeah.
those savers, and I do those or some segment of those every day. You read, write, you know, silence is one of them, exercise, and even if you only do it for a few minutes, or it might be, sometimes on the weekends I take a little bit longer just to kind of let throw off whatever needs to come out. And it really is helpful, especially first thing in the morning. And when I've gone through things and things are kind of tough and they're out of sync and everything, one thing that I always do is like go back to it comes back to the reason why these things are wrong is not necessarily that I'm ungrateful, but I forgot about the gratitude that I need to have to be there.
Yeah.
Because when you come back to that, you know, I started doing an exercise that before I go to bed, I write down three things great that happened to me, and in the morning I write down 5 to 10 things that I'm grateful for in the morning. And it always comes down to, my family and a lot of other things like that. And just something, you know, uh, might have been an insignificant thing to everyone else. But to me, that was a great moment. And you'd be surprised at how much that changes your entire temperament. And
Oh,
it's proven that when you are happy and you are content and everything else, that you are 30%, more apt to make these decisions. Whereas if you're very negative or down on yourself, it's why, it's that self-fulfilling prophecy where you end up like not being able to see your way out of this thing, and why somebody else can just come by and go, hey, just do this.
right. Right. Yeah. So true. You know, I love that because I've also started journaling a little bit. And when I'm journaling here in the afternoons or in the first thing in the morning, like when the just really flowing,
Hmm.
um, I have to remember to count my wins. And so many of us get so wrapped up in these great big goals, like
Hmm.
obtaining the next 1,000 units, or
Yeah.
the next 100 million in assets under management, or whatever that is. Well, sometimes them goals take a long time to
Yeah.
mature, and we really get bogged down. And I think we get this achievement thing going for us, and we start thinking, man, I'll be happy when
Yeah. Yeah.
I accomplish this. But and we really screw ourselves up because of
Yeah.
that, because we forget about the small things in life.
Yeah.
Hey, I got up today.
Yeah.
That's Thank you. I won.
Yeah.
I'm up before the sun. That's win number two. you
Yeah.
know and then, hey, I've got a family. I've
Hmm.
got a kid. I've got two kids. All these things, and you start thinking about these things, and you're like, yeah, I mean, it sounds silly, but writing that down
Yeah.
is huge, because you remember that. You're like, man, I've got it going on. I'm
Yeah.
doing pretty good.
Yeah, because it helps you connect with all your senses and all the things. Because, like you said, sometimes we forget, all the little wins that it took to get to that big win. I think are probably much more important than that big win.
It
Because those
is.
daily little things that got you through everything just are immensely important. It's it's easy to make, anybody can make giant goals and stuff like that, but the execution is in all the little details, all the little grind, and if you celebrate those things, and what I've been neglecting to do is, like, sometimes at the end of the week or end of the month, if I just go back and look at those things, like, hey, well, I actually, oh, I did all these things. It's like, well, okay, well then the rest of this that's coming up here, it's not going to be that difficult because I did that already,
Yeah.
and I thought that was insurmountable. And it's when you make those, what is that saying where, um, you generally don't hit your 1 year goals, but usually exceed your 5 year goals.
Yeah.
Over,
Let me see here. That's Tony Robbins.
yeah,
Um, you grossly overestimate, or you underestimate. No, you overestimate what you can achieve in a year, and grossly
under,
underestimate what you can achieve in 5 years,
yeah,
something like that. And it's powerful, man. And I like to do this. I like to take them small wins, and I like to take my failures,
hmm,
and I like to stack them, or I like to put them on the wall like a handhold
yeah,
when I'm climbing the mountain. And they're either steps or they're handholds. And every failure and every small win gives me that, either that step or that handhold to go up the mountain for that
yeah.
big goal. And we have to count the small ones as steps, and we have to count our failures as lessons so we can keep going.
Well, that's one thing I say often, is that I wish when I was younger. I mean, I focus on my life not to have any regrets, but I wish that I would have failed faster when I was young.
Man, that's my number one saying. So, I coach a lot of people with business,
Yeah,
and they're like, I tell everybody, and everybody laughs about this one, but they're like, okay, what do we need to do? You need to go out and fail. You need to fail
yeah,
fast. I
yeah,
said, just go out here, just run out here and fail. And they're
yeah,
like, dang, like that sounds detrimental. I said,
yeah,
no, no, it's not really not. I mean, just do it. Rip
yeah. I
off
mean,
the Band-Aid.
yeah, I've been there, and it wasn't fun, but I knew not to do that again, or knew how not to do that again. And there's a guy I follow a lot, is David Goggins, and he
Oh yeah.
says he says it's when you mess something up, it's not a failure. It just means you got to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so many things I've done through life and through business that I've totally screwed up on,
Yeah,
totally screwed up. And I think that lessons cost money and good lessons cost lots.
yeah,
And, so far that's been true.
yeah,
But I would have never, the education that I have, or those lessons, they're like tuition
yeah.
for real world college that you can't get, that's education anywhere else.
No, you got to make that commitment to that education, and that education costs dearly sometimes financially. But you know what? Usually, like what I've noticed working for a lot of these billionaire types, is if they lost it all the same day, they know how to make it back in a tenth of the time, or they
Yeah.
have all the connections. They know who to talk to at the bank. They know who to talk to here, there, and everywhere, and they know how to talk to everyone. They have all the knowledge, so it'll come back rather
Yeah. No
quickly.
matter,
So,
how
you
much they lose dollar amount wise, it's no big deal
know,
because they are more skillful today. And, there's a saying that goes, I think you could remove all the money from all the billionaires, or, $1 trillion people in the world, and it would be a matter of time. It would go right back into their
yeah,
hands because it's their identity.
yeah. It's just because that's how they're, again, their mindset.
Yeah.
They know what and where to be, and they control the narrative. They create their own story. They know, or they're living who that future self is already. So they know already, they're already on that path. So you can tell when somebody is just, when I say winning or what have you, like you saw Michael Jordan, if even if they were down, or like Tom Brady, you knew he was coming.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. You
no
can't,
matter
you
what.
can't.
You're like, oh, they're down by 30. Oh, there's, oh, they just won. Oh, he just kept going. Like, he wasn't even, face wasn't even phased or anything. He's like, yeah, we still got time. It's like, one
Right.
of my favorite stories that I remember hearing was Joe Montana, and it was the Super Bowl. They were down and they're in the huddle, and there's only a couple minutes left. And one of the guys on the team's like, "Oh, Joe, what are we gonna do?" And he looks up and he goes, "Hey, is that John Candy in the stands?" And he's like, when he said that, I was like, "Man, there's not a chance anywhere that we're gonna lose because he's already looking at what we're gonna do after the game."
Yeah, exactly. Like that's it, man.
Yeah,
Yeah. You can't beat a dude like that because they won from the minute they stepped in there.
yeah, and it just goes to show you that it's all, it's 100% the mindset, and you have to keep reminding yourself, that the war may be out everywhere, but the battle wages on in your head all day, every day. And
Oh
I've
yeah.
talked myself out of so many different things that I really should have done, but I think I needed to go through that and realize that, hey, look, you need to get out of your own way and just
Yeah.
take
Oh
the step,
man. That
take the step.
that's a one for the highlight reel. It really is because we get in our way so much it's unbelievable. We are our own worst enemy. Like anytime I'm teaching somebody to start a business or something like that, I'm like, okay, let's go through it. And your first three excuses don't count.
Yeah,
And they'll say, well, I can't do this because I don't have that. And I can't do this because I don't have money. And I can't do this because of that. And I was like, okay, now what's number four? I guess I don't have any excuses. It's like it started the day. It's because we just automatically like, oh man, well I can't do this because I can't. Well, yeah, if you say you can't, you can't. It's true.
yeah. And
Just tell yourself you can't.
it's funny how just little changes in your language will change, instead of, oh, I could never afford that, or instead of saying, how do I afford that? Or,
Yeah,
instead of I could never do that, how would I do that? Or who would I need to find to help me with that?
yeah. I mean,
It's,
if you
it's one of
reverse
the,
engineer, you know where you really want to go in life, things start getting pretty simple.
hmm
Because if you start writing it down, you're like, okay, this is the amount of money and this is the house and this is the car and all this stuff. Like you put figures to all this stuff if that's truly
hmm
what you desire. And then you're like, okay, well, I don't want to take 20 years to get there. So then you have to start thinking about, okay, so how many surges of money or what can I do to get there? And it gets out of the mindset of, okay, well, I can't take this path. I got to do this. All right, well, how many people do I need to give me this much money to be able to achieve this in 5 years?
yeah. And who do, and one thing that keeps coming back to me is like, what kind of leverage do you need to
Yeah,
make that happen? Like, whose skill sets do you need to leverage? What money do you need to leverage? What type of thought process do you need to leverage that somebody else has that needs to be in there? And
yeah,
when you reverse engineer it, like you say, in 5 years or 10 years, however long the time period is, it gets very methodical. And then you can really actually go, well, you know what? It's when you break it into pieces, it's really not that big of a deal.
no, it comes easy. You're like, okay, I need an executive, I need a capital raiser,
Yeah.
I need a
Yeah.
CPA, and then you're like, huh, I'm really light on, leads and stuff like that. Well, get Alex
Sales.
Hormozzi's,
Yeah.
$100 million leads, read that book,
Yeah.
and you start stacking the wins. Or, okay, well, watch that YouTube video. And,
Yeah.
I need to build a funnel so I can get more people in my CRM.
Yeah.
Well, okay, well, how do we build a funnel? Maybe I just hire somebody. When you really start just putting it on the wall and start
Yeah.
really nailing it down, you're like, okay, I need this. I can do that. I'm passionate
Yeah.
about that. So I'm the one that should do this. It
Yeah.
comes real easy.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, one of the greatest things that's ever happened for me was YouTube, YouTube University. I mean,
Oh
there's,
God, yeah, man.
yeah, I am just I don't know, a hound on that. Anything that I want to learn about, somebody's made a video about it.
Yeah.
It's so awesome, and it's just too easy. It's if you want to learn about cars, airplanes, or anything, For the most part, somebody's made a video about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
100%.
it's one of those things where that one thing that's been helpful for me that I think what we keep seemingly coming back to is just that singular focus that helps you. And I realized a while back that why I've been successful on the yachts and stuff is because every time we leave the dock and we're going somewhere, I have a singular focus, and that's to get everybody there safely. Doesn't matter what the weather is, doesn't matter what's happening. And I get this like overwhelming like peace or calm because that's all I have to focus on. That's
Yeah,
because the only thing that I need to bring that over into other parts of my life because it helps to be present. Like, okay, I'm with my wife and kids right now. That's my whole focus right now,
right.
or I'm working on this real estate deal. This is what I'm focused on right now. And when you get that amount of clarity, the tasks become easier. I'm not saying
They
they'll
do.
become easy, but they become easier because you can weed out all those, all the noise. And focus is a huge skill. If you have that laser type focus, if you see all those extreme athletes or the most successful business people that have that thing about them where they will just focus on that one thing until they get it done.
They just fixate on it.
Mm.
They just hone in to the point that they're just dangerous.
Yeah.
You're so right on this. And one thing you said I want to turn back to is, even if the weather, is bad, but you're excited and you know that everybody's going to arrive safe.
Yeah.
And I think that when we have some experience and when we have that mindset, there's no seas, there's
Mm.
no, rain, there's no element that's going to stop you because you're focused on that destination and you know that you're going to get there. And there's nothing that can come up that's going to rock your ship. Like you're
Yeah.
going through it. You're going to point this thing in the right direction
And
and full power ahead.
you're gonna find whatever you need to do to get there. Because I'm thinking of a specific time a few years ago, and I had a crew member come to me, and I was outside, and there's taking waves and stuff. The weather was not great, but I knew, we can make it, and we're gonna make it. It doesn't really matter, like you said. And they're like, "Well, Cap, what are we gonna do? With this, and this?" And I said, "All we got to do is get there.
It's simple after that.
It doesn't really matter about any of that. All we got to do is get there
Yeah.
safely. You good?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm good."
Yeah.
Is it? I was like, "You don't need to worry about that,
Yeah.
unless something happens." You
I
know,
got a really good one. If I can remember it correctly, I absolutely love this. I actually quoted it last year, I think, towards the end of a ton of adversity I faced. But, it's not about shaking your fist at the wind. It's about building a better boat to be able to take the wind and
yeah,
sail like a speedboat.
yeah,
Because, so many times we're like, oh man, the weather, and you get so upset about these things. Well, just build a better boat. You
yeah,
know, don't wish for better seas. Just you probably know it better than I do.
yeah. There's one thing like that I always think about is everyone always tries to beat nature, but we are nature, so we can't beat ourselves. Just
No.
go with it. A lot of times you just got to go with it. Sometimes if you're pounded into it, maybe you got to turn around and go with it. There
Yeah.
may be something pointing in a different. It's same thing with airplanes and stuff too. It's the same. You go around instead of going through.
Yeah.
Whatever is the best path of resistance. Because I used to fly and I had my pilot license in the '90s, and I haven't flown for a long time, and now gotten back into it because one of my daughters, that's what she wants to do, and I
Nice.
think I probably nerd out about it more than she does. We
Yeah.
went to Emory Riddle, and I'm like, "Oh, check out the flight simulator." She's like, "Dad,
Absolutely, man. But what
you
I
can't take
love
me
about what I love about what we do in our hobbies and in what we do every day is it relates so much to life. Like when you take on a sea, you don't turn sideways to the wave. You know, you
no,
you you aim straight to it. An airplane takes off in the wind. and it lands in the wind.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to do. And as an entrepreneur and as a real estate investor and all these things, like you got to face the winds. Like you
Yeah.
really do. If you want to go somewhere, you got to face it just head on and
Yeah.
just go for it.
It's the same thing with the boats. You dock with you dock with the current and the wind. You use all those things to your advantage.
Yeah.
Rather than try to fight them all, you use them to your advantage. And you know, a lot of times when you realize what the situation dictates, it's pretty easy because I had to. One of the first captains I worked for, he was letting me dock the boat, and I was coming in too fast and this and that, and I really had no idea what I was doing. And he's like, "You're coming in too hot." And then my hands started out thinking, my brain, so I'm go all over the place and I'm moving throttle, jockeying everywhere, and then he goes, "Hey, just stop, 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 stop," and I'm like, "But and he's like, "Nope, stop." And so I
Yeah.
stopped. I said, "But I'm gonna hit there," and he goes, "Okay, if you're gonna hit there, what do you need to do?" And I'm like, "I need to go reverse on starboard engine." He goes, "Why don't you just do that?"
Yeah. I got a great place to put this story in here. And man, that's true. Like, my dad had a 63-foot sports fish. It had 3.8 V92s in it. Beautiful boat, 21 foot wide, and open fly bridge convertible top. And when Dad would back that thing in the slip, Dad would turn around backwards with the
Yeah, yeah.
controls behind it,
Poor good
and he
guys.
would
Yeah,
run the port and starboard engine with his controls, his hands backwards. And that used to amaze me so much. And I
yeah,
watched him do it so many times. And one day we're backing into a slip in Stuart, Florida, and Dad's backing in, and somehow the current just grabbed a hold of that boat.
yeah.
And when it did, that thing was headed right for a very nice yacht. I mean, a
Ooh,
very nice yacht. And
yeah,
Dad kicked it in neutral and put his hands up, and he just let go. And the boat just kind of floated over and just bumped into the back of that yacht because the nose of the boat, we're in the slip, and our boat is like diagonal coming in
yeah,
because it caught it in the current. Rather than fight it, rather than goose it, rather
yeah,
than do anything else, Dad just stopped and
yeah.
boom, punched a hole right in the side of a Kevlar boat. Turned out it was the owner of the Saints football team.
Oh,
Guy
wow.
was nice as he could be. Gave us T-shirts and everything else. Dad fixed his boat because Dad was a boat builder.
Yeah,
And I said, Dad, like, why didn't you gas it? I'm a young boy. I'm like, why
yeah,
didn't you
yeah,
do this? Why didn't you do that? And he goes, son, sometimes the best thing you could ever do is just stop
yeah,
and let nature take its course. He
yeah. No,
said, if I would have gassed it, I would have washed his boat up. I would have pounded his boat in the side of the pilings. Or worse, what if I went the wrong direction and powered into it? Just
yeah,
stop.
yeah.
Just stop what you're doing.
Stop and reset, take a moment, see what you really need to do. And that same captain, he would say, I knew things were bad if he just yelled out, "Hey, committed." And it's like, at that point, I know I'm hands off everything because I'm not over the rail or anything because there's nothing he can do. And he said it. And I said, "Why do you do that?" And I asked him, he said, "Well, it could be infinitely worse if I try to get myself out of a situation which I know there's no way out of. So it's
Yeah.
best to, if you're going to hit something, hit it slow. Nobody's going to get hurt with the boat going slow.
Right.
So the first thing is that you stop and recognize there's a problem, and that's the thing that you really have to recognize. And and that's like they say in the boating world, slow is pro. You know.
Yeah. And flying, my flight instructor always said, Eddie, slow is fast.
Yeah.
And, there was a point in time we were flying in and we we were doing, a bunch of maneuvers. We were out playing around, having a good time, flying some cross country. And, I could hear something in the radio, but we were out here playing around middle of nowhere. We didn't need the radio as much, but we made a rookie mistake. We had turned the radio down a little bit. So I'm coming into this runway and on the approach in this airport, and I start hearing all this, like, I was like, hey, Pat, do you hear that? And he's like, no, I don't hear anything. Just looks good. Take the runway. He's looking down at the charts, And next thing I know, I look down and my radar starts going off collision alert, collision alert.
Oh
Well,
no.
there's a Learjet wound up coming off the runway, and I'm coming down to him.
Oh
And I'm like, we're in a little Cessna 172 here, so it's not like we can get out of the way real fast. And
no.
he reaches over and grabs the controls. I smack his hand. I said, "My aircraft," and full power. We take off out of there. And in that moment, he said, "Eddie, right there, you slowed everything down. Like you didn't react, in a way that you put the plane down towards the runway. Like
Yeah.
you knew exactly what you needed to do. You slowed everything down. You pulled full power, right rudder. You took off. You're out of there." And he goes, "That's why I say you always have time." He used to do engine outs on me all the time, you know, close my eyes, put my chin down, disorient me, planes pointed straight in the sky, and then he'd say, "Okay, your aircraft." And you're
Yeah.
like, "Okay, what in the world do you do?" Well, the first thing you got to do is you got to understand where you're at. Like you're going to be like, "Okay, I don't see anything, but I don't even see a horizon. I'm pointing straight in the sky." So you're not going to go full power.
No.
You're going to tilt your nose down and get some airspeed underneath of you and then start to pull power back on. And it was all those exercises were so cool because even on engine outs, like when we left the runway, engine out, what are you going to do? Well, we're not going to turn around. We won't make it. And
Yeah.
then you say, okay, well, there's a golf course
Yeah.
or, there's a field, there's always somewhere to land.
There's a beach. There's always something you can do, and it's like you said, if you can there's always time to slow it down. And I've found that just over the years, the older I get, the slower I get, and it's very beneficial, especially like on the boats. Over the years, I've gotten really good at disaster management because things can happen in a hurry and you have to be self-sufficient, and
Yeah.
especially when some kind of weather you get, or you lose generators or lose power or something, something gets caught in the prop or something gets, sucked up into the machinery and stuff. And then if you start panicking, that doesn't help everyone around you.
No, man. You can control the situation on how
Yeah.
you react. I think his name's Jocko, a
Yes.
very good, motivational speaker, does YouTube. And, I think his favorite saying is good,
Good.
you know,
Yeah.
that you ran into a boat. Good.
Good.
You failed today. Good.
Good.
Good. You learned something today.
Yeah.
That's so true. Own it. Good. It happened.
Yeah. I think I said that one time we were offshore somewhere off Hatteras or something like that off North Carolina, and we lost both generators. We'd sucked up some junk in there, and both generators shut down. We had to go to emergency steering, and the guys were like, we had a young guy who was fairly junior. He's like, "Well, what do we do?" And I was like, "Well, we lost generators. Good. Yeah, we're in the dark. Good. All right, that's good." And the mate, he was used to me he and I had been together for a while. He's like, "Yeah, so still going to Newport, right?" "Yeah." I said, "What we'll do, we got emergency steering going. We'll just keep going this way, and if once we see land in front of us, we'll turn right.
Yeah.
When you see another gap in the land, we'll make a left turn. I'll probably be Newport. We got
Yeah.
we got the compass. We got about 800 miles to go. 12 miles. We got a little ways. So,
Yeah. I think it'll be all right.
but
Yeah.
I had a good chief, so he got things online after a
Yeah.
couple of days of blackouts and stuff like that. But it just if I'd been on some other boats and programs where I wasn't the senior there, and the guys start panicking and stuff, and it wasn't really helpful. The rest of things deteriorate rapidly when that happens, and
Yeah.
I was always lucky that I've been through enough stuff in my life that it's not the if nobody's dying or nobody's injured badly, it's not the end of the world. You just figure it out.
Yeah. 100%. Well, man, what should we leave the audience with here to summarize, what's the best thing someone can do if they're starting out, or if they're facing a bunch of adversity right now, like they're starting this real estate investment company, or they're buying their first deal, or whatever that might be. What would you give the audience as a guidepost, or something you would encourage them with?
I would encourage them to just get out there and network, and meet as many amazing people as you can doing the things that you want to do, because that helped me. That made me jump the hurdle so much faster, because there's always somebody out there that's done it before, done it better, done it more.
Yeah.
We're not in the real estate game and on the boats and stuff. We're not doing anything anyone else hasn't done before. So
Right.
just get out and meet people and learn as much as you can about the topic. And you'll find the people that you align with, that are doing the things that you want to do. And the thing that I really love about boats and real estate, there's a lot of people that are very cooperative, and they'll tell you exactly how they did it, and they'll
Hmm.
gladly share and gladly help. It's very, especially in commercial real estate, it's very team oriented. Just like
Yeah.
on the boats, without the team or the crew, the boat goes nowhere. And it's the same thing with the commercial real estate. If you have a bad team, that property's sunk before you
Yeah.
even get going.
Oh yeah, 100%. So Scott, how do people get in touch with you? Because I know you got some great opportunities coming up. You've got some real estate deals you're looking at, and maybe some other things that you're working on. So what is the best way my audience can get in touch with you?
The easiest way is investwithscottkid.com. It's got all my links and numbers and everything there. And if anybody needs any help or wants to chat, just feel free to reach out. Glad to talk to you. I never turn down an opportunity to meet great people.
Awesome. Awesome. So there you go. And investwithscottkid.com. That's the best place you can get a hold of Scott. We're going to go ahead and close up here. But audience, if you can do one thing for us, please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you would, please share it with someone that you know that would need to hear this. And the last thing I want to ask of you is, don't do the ordinary thing, do the extraordinary thing. It's just the little bit of extra. And it's that little bit more that we put into ourselves, or we put out to help someone else. That little bit of extra is all it takes to go from an ordinary person to an extraordinary person. So thank you so much. Truly appreciate it, Scott. And dude, we'll catch you on the next one, man.
Definitely. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.